Okay, let's look at research and development and how you actually make decisions along those lines. So from the decide area in the simulation, just click research and development and it brings you here. So before you go in and make these decisions, you need to already have in your mind what sort of attribute levels you want to specify for this R&D project. Okay, so if you're operating in the Sonites market, what you would do is click Start a new Sonites project, then you would give it a name. So all R&D projects begin with PO. Then you have to include the first letter of your team name. So in this situation, it's S. So let's say we want to create a new brand called soap. So we may put together a project called PO Soap. Project objective, you would just put something in here about what this project is for. So to create brand to target explorers. And then here, in this next section, this is where you enter in all the different attributes. So we want number of features of 11. We want design index of 7. We want battery life of 72. We want display size of 13 inches. We want processing power of 45. Okay? And again, those numbers should come from research that you've done on your particular target market and what they want. Then you have to decide about base costs. So you can do two things here. You can just let the simulation tell you what the base cost is, and the way to do that is to click lowest possible, or you can basically give a number. This is how much we want this project to cost us. So the problem with that is if the product is, the specifications are too complex, it may not actually work. So I recommend that you always click lowest possible, okay? Then what you do, don't worry about this for just a second, come over here and hit run an online query. What this basically is going to do is, based on the information that you entered in here in terms of attributes, it's going to tell you what is it going to cost to actually do the R&D project, and it's also going to tell you what the cost per unit is going to be for this once it is turned into a brand and is introduced onto the market. And that estimated minimum base cost depends on, or is based on, a initial production run of 100,000 units. So if you do this project and then the first time around you only order 50,000 units, your base cost is going to be much higher. Okay, so I keep that in mind. So what you do is you just click run online query and it gives you some numbers. So this shows us that it's going to cost us $1.05 million to do the R&D project. That money will come out of your marketing budget. And this is what the product's going to cost you per unit. Again, given 100,000 units, 101 bucks. Okay. If you don't like that, if that's too high, you can say, well, okay, let's cut the battery life down to 60 hours. You can do that, run another query, and now we have a budget required for completion of only 820,000 and a minimum base cost of $99. So you've got your cost down. So this may be more satisfactory. I will caution you that you should focus more on what consumers want than the actual costs, because again, this is marketing. You need to give consumers what they want. Okay. All right. Once you're happy with the dollar figures here, then what you want to do is you want to specify how much of this project you want to pay for this period. And so I strongly recommend that you always pay for it in full in one period, because if not, it'll delay the amount of time it takes for the project to complete. So here you see 820,000, that automatically shows up here. If you don't have the money and you want to commit like 50% of the money towards it, you can do 50% now and 50% in the next period if you want. So all you would do is manually change that number. Okay, but if you don't fully fund it, it will take more than one period to be complete. So given that we're only doing 8 periods, it's probably a good idea to avoid that and get the projects out as soon as possible. One thing I did not mention is that you only get 5 online queries per period because they don't want you to kind of nickel and dime the queries just, in an endless manner. So just make sure that you're careful with how many of these you use. But again, if you're focused on what consumers want in terms of attribute levels, then you shouldn't have to use more than just a couple. Okay, once you got everything in, everything looks good, you hit create. Oh, looks like it didn't like the period I had in there. Okay. All right, to start a new Vodites project, you would do the exact same thing here. Okay, so now it's set up in the overview. We have set up, we are ordering project soap. Okay, if you've decided that, well, I'm getting cold feet, this is too expensive, I changed my mind, you can click on the project, come in here and just click delete PO soap. And the $820,000 that would have been taken from your budget will now have been restored back to your budget. Okay, and that's how R&D works. Remember, the hardest thing to wrap your heads around with R&D is that you have to wait a full period for an R&D project to be available to be used to create or modify brands. And people don't seem to understand that, but just remember, if you order an R&D project now as part of this period's decisions, and it's fully funded, it will complete, and in the next set of decisions, it will now be available to use to create or modify brands.